What is it?
It's time to go back.
Welcome.
I have a question for you. Who is your definitive movie version of Batman? Is it Michael Keaton or Ben Affleck or Christian Bale or Robert Pattinson? Hell, maybe even George Clooney. Well, if you have an answer to that question, then chances are you are a fan of the Batman movies. And so this week on the Generation S podcast, we are starting a mini retrospective on the Batman movies of the 90s. Here in part one, we are going to dive deep into the iconic Tim Burton Batman movies that not only defined the superhero genre for a generation, it set up a whirlwind of success for Batman in the decades to come. From the dark and brooding world of Gotham City to the unforgettable performances of Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson, Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer, we are exploring everything that made these films the classics that they are today. So whether you're a lifelong fan or just discovering these films for the first time, you will not want to miss this episode or the next episode. So tune in, grab some popcorn, and join us as we revisit the groundbreaking Tim Burton Batman movies on Generation S.
What is it?
It's time to go back.
Welcome.
Hey, you. Welcome back to Generation S. It's a podcast about growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s. I'm Dan Kemp, joined by my co-host of the day, our resident Mighty Morphin Power Rangers expert, the one and only Lou Carnivale.
Disclaimer, it's not just Mighty Morphin, it's just the Zordon era, which is like 93 to 99. But sure, I've been called a lot worse.
That sounds like something a Power Rangers expert would say, to clarify.
Yes.
How you been, man?
Doing good. This is an exciting show. I'm happy to be doing this in two parts, actually.
Yes.
It's going to be fun.
Yes, this is a two-part Batman episode. So the reason we're doing this is because the new Flash movie is coming out, and let's be honest, most people are going to see it to see Michael Keaton as Batman. Maybe you're a Flash fan, that's great, but we all know Ezra Miller is nuttier than squirrel shit, so we are going to see this so that we can see Michael Keaton as Batman once again. It has been over 30 years since the man has donned the cowl on the big screen, so super pumped, and I thought, you know what? Let's talk about those 90s Batman movies. Originally, I was just going to talk about the Michael Keaton ones, which is what we're going to do today. But I also want to give some love or at least acknowledgement to the other two 90s Batman movies. So that's going to happen next week. This is part one of the 90s Batman, I guess you'd call it a retrospective or whatever. This is the Tim Burton era that we are covering here today. And so before we get into that, Lou, let me ask you. So when you think of like movie Batmen, who for you is the definitive on-screen Batman?
Okay, are we saying Batman or Bruce Wayne?
I mean, if you feel it's separate, then give me both.
Okay, Michael Keaton is Batman.
Okay.
He is.
So of all the different people that have played Batman on screen, not counting the animated series, talking live action, you feel he is the epitome of Batman.
Yes, here's how I break it down. I feel like the absolute best Batman in the suit is Christian Bale.
Okay.
I feel like the best Bruce Wayne is Michael Keaton. I feel like the best combo of both Batman and Bruce Wayne is Michael Keaton.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So all in all, he comes out on top when you're looking at both as the total package.
Yes, I don't think Christian Bale is a good Bruce Wayne. I think he's a very good Batman. But I think Michael Keaton can do both of those roles the best.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue. Listen, to me, I would say, yeah, Michael Keaton's probably the definitive Batman overall because that's I mean, it's also who I grew up with, so that I think plays a big part in that. But also, I mean, I gotta show love. My one of my favorite movie trilogies of all time is the Christian Bale Batman Dark Knight trilogy. So it's definitely neck and neck. I mean, you've got Ben Affleck. I thought he did fine as Batman with what he was given. I really liked the Robert Pattinson Batman from this, 2022, The Batman. I thought that was fantastic. So, I mean, I guess the only one that I really hate as Batman's got to be George Clooney, and we'll get to him next week. But
I mean, it was George Clooney just calling himself Bruce Wayne, just doing his normal thing.
It was just George Clooney. Exactly. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
But listen, we'll talk about that next week. So,
Cool.
all right. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to break down each movie separately. So we'll go through kind of a quick plot. We will then talk about, the behind the scenes stuff, maybe a little bit. We'll also talk about our memory seeing it, whether it was as a kid or as an adult. If you never saw it back in the day, we'll talk about some of the merchandise tie-ins, that type of deal. And then we'll move on to Batman Returns and do the exact same thing. So I guess without further ado, I have the plot summaries written up, so I'll just jump into them then.
Spoilers.
Yeah, well, of course, yes. Spoilers for a 30-plus-year-old
movie from 1989.
Yes, and it's funny. Before I get into that, I do want to say one more thing. I had a buddy of mine because I told him I'm going to do the '90s Batman movie, starting with the first one with Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. He goes, "Bro, I hate to break it to you, but that movie came out in '89." I'm like, "It came out in the second half of '89. You round it up, it's in the '90s as far as I'm concerned."
How about the VHS came out in the 90s?
There you go. See, yeah, and that's how I watched it. Was actually technically I didn't, but I'll talk about that later. All right,
Okay.
So here we go. The 1989 Batman movie follows reporter Alexander Knox and photojournalist Vicky Vale as they investigate sightings of Batman, a masked vigilante targeting Gotham City's criminals. They attend a fundraiser hosted by billionaire Bruce Wayne, who, spoiler alert, actually is Batman, and Bruce Wayne becomes infatuated with Vicky Vale, while meanwhile mob boss Carl Grissom sends his second in command, the insane Jack Napier, played by Jack Nicholson, to raid a chemical plant, Axis Chemicals, while at the same time secretly plotting to have him murdered for sleeping with his girlfriend. During a brief scuffle with Batman, Napier falls into a vat of chemicals and emerges as the Joker, who then terrorizes Gotham by lacing hygiene products with a deadly chemical called Smilex.
Love that Joker.
Throughout the movie, the Joker becomes also obsessed with Vicky Vale. Apparently, she is in very high demand between the two main characters in this movie. He tries to lure her to a trap at the Gotham Museum of Art, to which Batman responds and rescues her, takes her to the Batcave. Long story short, we figure out what has been poisoning all of these Gothamites in Joker's chemicals. Batman tells people how to avoid it. The Joker calls Batman out, brings him to a parade, and decides to dump money on the crowd to get them out into the open, while he decides to gas them with his Smilex gas. Batman saves the day once again with his Batwing plane, taking away the giant gas balloons, as Vicky Vale is once again kidnapped by Joker and carried to the top of Gotham Cathedral while Batman is in pursuit. The film ends with an ensuing fight where Joker falls to his death while Batman and Vicky make it to safety. Later on, Gordon announces, that's Commissioner Gordon, by the way, that the police have arrested all of Joker's men, dismantled Carl Grissom's mafia organization, and unveils the Bat Signal. Batman leaves a note promising to defend Gotham and asking the police to use the Bat Signal whenever they need him. In times of need, you summon Batman. Alfred takes Vicky to Wayne Manor, that's Alfred the butler, where she waits for Bruce Wayne. Batman stands watch over the city as we roll to credits. That was the first time I've ever read a movie plot summary, by the way.
There you go.
Out loud, anyway. I mean, I've read them before, but that was a lot to unpack, man. For the first Batman movie on the silver screen in over 20 years, technically, at the time, because the last time you had Batman in a movie theater was Batman 1966, which we're not going to really cover here, but I'll ask you, have you seen the Batman 1966 movie?
Is that the one with Adam West?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
There it is. So
yeah, I had that on VHS back in the day.
They had their work cut out here as far as, trying to steer away from that. When they brought in Tim Burton, they wanted to go for a darker Batman. They, because they were talking about making it kind of lighthearted and hokey and campy like the original 66 Batman. They were talking about bringing in the likes of Bill Murray, as Batman for this.
What?
Did you know that?
No.
Yes, no, legit.
No.
They were considering Bill Murray if they were thinking, oh, well, we're going to go with that campy
Hey guys,
kind of.
this is you're not really supposed to be doing this right here, so it'd be great if you could put your hands up and leave in an orderly fashion. Thank you.
Well, and it's funny because, again, when they cast Michael Keaton, they assumed the same thing. What? I mean, it's going to be a hokey comedy because at that point, Michael Keaton was known as, a comedic actor. He was in Beetlejuice right before this. So there was a lot of, controversy. And that's something that's never really gone away as far as Batman movies. There's always been controversy around casting major characters. Like, the first one I think of apart from this is like, Heath Ledger as the Joker, right? How many people freaked out when they heard that Heath Ledger was going to be cast as the Joker? Like, well, what the hell is that all about? And he knocked it out of the park.
And what about the Batman, the dude from Twilight?
He did amazing. I thought Robert Pattinson was fantastic as Batman. So,
Could I make one observation about that? Because we're probably not going to give that a full episode.
yeah, sure.
If you're a fan of the Arkham games, the Batman movie is the closest thing you're going to get to an Arkham Asylum, Arkham City-esque movie.
100% agree. Yep.
It's fantastic.
It is
okay, I'm done with Arkham now.
Incredible. Yeah. Well, yeah. So, man. So, yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to go too deep into the behind the scenes, but they shot the film in London on sound stages, and I thought they did a very good job kind of portraying Gotham City as this crime-ridden kind of, just a shithole for the
New York.
Yeah.
It's New York.
It's New York and Chicago and like Pittsburgh all rolled into one is kind of what the vibe they were going for. And it's funny too. What I love about this movie is that it feels very almost kind of timeless because at the time it seemed kind of modern as far as late 80s, but then you've got these cars that are straight out of the 60s and 70s, and people are dressed to the nines to go to the movie theater. Like, so it didn't really have it was very, I guess I'll say it again, very timeless in terms of its setting.
It's interesting, and I know we're going to get to those other Batman movies, but they have that also, the old-time looking cars.
Yep.
Where it seems like it's from a different era. But also the Batman animated series that came out a couple years after this had that same old New York kind of vibe to it. It just, I don't know, something about Batman in the 90s has this old world view of it, or presentation of it, excuse me.
Well, and I think that's what Tim Burton was going for, because they certainly didn't do that back with the 1966 Batman. That movie took place in the 60s, and it looked like it took place in the 60s, whereas Batman came out, and that's another reason why I wanted to do these podcasts, is because we're coming up on almost 90 years since Batman came out. Or no, is it 90? It's not 90. It's like 80 something. But either way, it came out in like the 30s, and like I think they wanted to kind of have that old timey feel, because I think that's part of what made it kind of that gritty noir detective type of vibe that they were going for, and I thought they pulled it off really nicely with this movie.
They did, and that's interesting you brought that up, the old detective noir kind of investigation. But as we go on in this Batman 90s saga, I feel like we get away from that detective.
Yeah.
That world's greatest detective moniker. I feel like as we go along, goes further and further away from these movies.
Right, yeah, I 100% agree. Now, as far as, the movie came out in 89, I was 2, you were 3 years old. When did you first see this movie?
I couldn't even tell you.
No.
I really don't know. I think I saw a lot of bits and pieces of it. I don't remember when I actually saw it. I never owned it. I know I didn't own it on VHS, didn't own it on DVD. I got it maybe 8 years ago, give or take, on like one of those 4-packs you get at Target or Walmart, of all the Batman 90s movies. So,
but you had seen it before then.
I did, but hold on. Does it actually say... No, I thought, sometimes like the 4 film favorites will say 4 film favorites from the 90s or this or that.
Oh, yeah, it
doesn't say 90s on it. It says just 4 film favorites.
Oh, well,
there we go. It doesn't say 90s on it.
Yeah. So I actually saw it for the first time. Now, again, I think it was one of those where I saw bits and pieces of it because it was on TV a lot. And so there was always, bits and pieces on TV that I caught, or maybe commercials of it or what have you, because there were a lot of commercials for this movie. But I remember the first time I saw it from start to finish, it was not on VHS or DVD. It was on Betamax.
Oh, boy.
So the same way I saw Ghostbusters, the first time I saw Batman was on Betamax. And, I got to tell you, it's funny because I had seen Batman Returns way before I ever saw Batman 1989. So this was, so that was my first exposure to Batman. Now I'm watching technically the first Batman in the series with Batman 89. And I mean, I loved it. I thought it was great. I mean, start to finish, I thought it was fantastic. What were your thoughts on, we talked about Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne and Batman, and I agree. I thought he was fantastic. But what were your thoughts on Jack Nicholson as the Joker?
The best Joker there's ever been on TV.
Really?
Or, yes.
So you would say even more than like Heath Ledger?
Well, here's the thing. The Joker, to me, being... I watched the animated show growing up. I've rewatched it as an adult. I have played the Arkham games, and I've read more comic books since COVID than I did any other time in my life. There's two sides of the coin with Joker. There's the ha-ha-ha Joker, which you mostly got on the animated show because they couldn't really do that much evil. And then you have that sadistic, dark side Joker, which you got with, the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
You see in the Arkham games a little bit, voiced by Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, for those that don't know. The Joker that was in the 60s show or movie, Cesar Romero,
yep,
was the jokey side. Heath Ledger was the evil, demonic side. Jack Nicholson is the middle. You get the joke. What do you want? I want my face on the $100 bill.
Yeah.
But then you have him being evil and maniacal and what the Joker should be. So I think the middle ground Joker that you get a little bit of A and a little bit of B is Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. And you know what? Look, it's hard to disagree with that because he's the perfect blend of the kind of over-the-top slapstick and like just maniacal, like, don't cross this guy, he'll shoot you, like he shot his main man Bob, his number one guy,
Bob.
He shot Bob the Goon, man.
Poor Bob.
Poor Bob, man. Pouring out for Bob. So I guess it's hard to disagree because I was gonna say have a legitimate argument for Heath Ledger as the Joker, but I think you're right. Like the essence of Joker is really that kind of in between legitimately hilarious and legitimately terrifying, and I think that's what makes him such a fantastic character and a fantastic foil to Batman, who, I mean, let's be honest, is humorless. For the most part, he's very dry. And so the Joker, I think, complements him very well. Whereas Heath Ledger was just straight up kind of I thought he was a very good villain. But yeah, as far as kind of the traditional Joker, he doesn't fit the mold as well. So yeah, I would say as far as the overall encompassing embodiment of the Joker, if we're talking live action, I got to go with you on that one. Jack Nicholson's the best. So
I felt like that for a very long time.
Yeah.
More so as an adult. And watching the Dark Knight trilogy and then going back and watching Batman 89, I'm like, this is what the Joker should be.
Yeah.
He's not all jokes and he's not all evil. He's jokes with Mick blended in with his evil side and his evil side blending in with his jokes. And, the cartoon or animated show, I corrected myself. The animated show from the early 90s tries their darndest to blend. It's very similar to that. And I think that Joker, that interpretation we saw on the small screen, obviously has to be toned down because it's an animated show, but I feel like a lot of the elements were taken from that Joker in Batman 89.
Yeah. No, I think so. I think he was the kind of the blueprint for especially the animated series and a lot of other portrayals of the Joker that weren't on the big screen going forward. Again, being Heath Ledger, Jared Leto, which again, don't even get me started on Jared Leto. That was just a train wreck and a half. So, man. Well, listen. Let's just kind of give people a little bit of a kind of a recap on how well it was received when it came out back in 1989. So we talked about our experience watching it, but it was one of those movies that, let's be honest, it did pretty well. On a budget of $48 million, it brought in over $410 million at the box office, so nearly 10 times its budget.
In 1989.
Yeah.
Let me adjust that. What's that number? You keep going. I'll adjust
okay,
it. So what is that?
It was it grossed $411 million in 1989.
Okay.
So you while you're
I'll
doing
do
the
my conversion.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I'll keep talking about how, again, people were so surprised because they were not, I mean, it really was a risk because it kind of reinvigorated interest in superhero movies, because you had the ones from the 60s and the 50s and the 40s with Superman, all that. This was kind of a total reboot of, hey, can a superhero movie be successful in the box office? We talked a while back about like X-Men being, the kind of the early 2000s version of kicking off Marvel movies. And it was. But I think you couldn't have had that if you didn't have the success of the Batman franchise that came out in the late 80s and the early to mid 90s, to show that, hey, people will pay money, and a lot of money, to go see a superhero movie on the big screen if it's done well. And I feel like this absolutely deserves all the praise it got when it came out back, over 34 years ago at this point, or almost 34 years ago, I should say. Did you find your calculations yet to see what it's worth, or what the conversion would be?
Well, I got two different numbers because I guess the inflation, depending on what website I use. Let's put it this way. It is over $1 billion.
Okay. So needless to say, it was a pretty raging success.
It certainly was.
Yeah.
I especially for a superhero movie during that time period.
Yep.
When they weren't common, or if they were out, they stunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, and listen, not only the movie itself, but I mean, the merchandise for the original Batman was off the chains. They had everything from books to fast food tie-ins to video games to I talked about books, toys. I mean, so many different things. Now, I didn't actually have any of this stuff because, again, I was 2 years old when this came out. I was not seeing this in theaters. My parents were not buying me Batman movie merchandise from the original Batman '89 movie. Did you have anything related to the Batman, the movie, as far as the merchandise?
I did have some of the action. I think I just had the Batman action figure, to be honest.
Was it from this, or was it from Batman Returns?
No, it was from Batman. What I remember the most is I don't want to say the packages. Well, it came in some packages, like for the Batmobile and stuff like that. The action figure cards, so to speak, like the card that it was on, had it was like a goldish yellow for some reason.
Yeah.
It was very distinctive. The reason I remember I had the Batman figure from this movie was the symbol on his chest was that bright yellow. I had never had a figure before or after that was like that type of Batman figure. But I do remember just having that one Batman figure. That's it. I had some friends that had the Batmobile, but can we go into the Batmobile? Because that...
Oh, we didn't even talk about it.
That is the Batmobile of all Batmobiles, in my opinion.
To me,
Batmobile from '89 is...
That is the definitive Batmobile for me of ever. Like if I picture the Batmobile in my head, this movie and the one from Batman Returns, which is it's the same one, this is what I see as the Batmobile.
I agree. If I had to pick out, if I could mentally draw physically draw what I'm mentally thinking, and when you say what does the Batmobile look like, it's this.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, the animated show it looked a little like this one.
It was close.
It was a little bit.
A little different, but it was fine. I thought it looked pretty good. I still think this one looks the best. I mean, it just...
Oh, I agree. 100%.
I don't even know what it's supposed to be. I think I read somewhere it's like a modified, I don't even know, like Jaguar or something. Whereas like a long chassis, but they had those badass Batwing fins on the sides. It had a jet engine in the back. It had, was it like a missile in the front or something in the middle there? I don't even know what that was. It just looked really cool.
It looks cool.
Yeah. And that's what matters, right? And it looks really great if you're going to buy it as a toy for your child, which again, I didn't own it. I never owned that one. I totally would have. The only close thing I had to that was we'll get to it, but Batman Returns had the McDonald's toys, and I'm pretty sure there was a Batmobile Happy Meal toy that I had. And that was the closest I ever had to having this Batmobile as a toy.
I did not have it in any way, shape, or form.
Oh,
even now, I don't even have like a Hot Wheel version or something like that.
Yeah, no, it was terrific. So, oh man, any other thoughts on the '89 Batman before we jump into Batman Returns? I mean, all in all, to me, one of the best Batman movies of all time.
It certainly is. It stood the test of time. Also, even in newer games, any type of Batman game, if there's extra skins, so to speak, the Batman '89 costume is always in it.
Yes.
With the dark black with the bright yellow. I think it's a very I think a lot of people have fond memories of the movie, of the bat suits, of Michael Keaton, of Jack Nicholson. I haven't met anybody say, I really just don't like that movie, or I don't like the actors, or I don't like this, I don't like that. It kind of spawned, how we have said multiple times on our shows, how Iron Man really was super important, obviously, more than people realized, to all the Avengers. If Iron Man failed, there would be no Avengers.
Yeah.
If Batman 89 didn't succeed, yes, what followed wasn't exactly the best, but towards the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a small uptick in superhero movies. They still weren't the best, especially those Hulk movies in the early 2000s, but it got us to eventually the next generation of superhero movies. So I think it's immensely popular, immensely important.
I don't even think just on the movie side. I think if this movie didn't do well, you wouldn't have the animated Batman series. You wouldn't have, all of these. Yeah, I just feel like the 90s Batman like hype and craze would not exist if this movie did not do well.
They actually made a Batman 89 follow-up comic.
They did.
Because, oh boy, Billy D. Williams is Harvey Dent.
Yes.
But then he just kind of disappears.
Our boy Lando Calrissian. Yeah, he
smooth talker. Cooler than the other side of the pillow, Lando Calrissian.
There he is. And yeah, he was I know he was in talks to play Two-Face, who Harvey Dent, his alter ego is Two-Face when he when he becomes a villain. And Billy D. Williams was set to do that, and it did not happen. So oh, man. Well, listen, fantastic movie. One of my favorite movies of all time. Infinitely rewatchable. I love it. So 2 thumbs up from me. I'm going to assume 2 thumbs up from you.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
2 thumbs up.
Well, then let's go ahead and jump into the sequel that came out 3 years later. Ironically, came out in the summer, but takes place at Christmas time. People will actually argue this is a Christmas movie, much like Die Hard and all the other non-Christmas Christmas movies out there, like Gremlins and stuff. So, but it came out in July. Go figure, right? So, or June. It came out in the summer. I know that. So, anyway, Batman Returns in 1992. I'll go ahead and jump into the plot summary for that real quick. In Batman Returns, this one's going to be a bit shorter because I realized that I was rambling in the last one. Here we go. In Batman Returns, the wealthy socialites of Gotham City discard their malformed son Oswald Cobblepot in the sewers, where he is adopted by a family of penguins. This is how the movie opens up, by the way. Over 30 years later, Oswald, now calling himself the Penguin, blackmails a corrupt industrialist named Max Schreck to help him become a respected member of Gotham's elite. Meanwhile, Schreck's meek secretary, Selina Kyle, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, discovers his plan to build a power plant that would secretly siphon electricity from Gotham, and so he tries to off her. He throws her out of a window, but she survives and becomes the vigilante, anti-hero, villain-ish person, Catwoman.
Great character.
Fantastic character.
There you go.
So she teams up with the Penguin to discredit Batman, who has been just kind of going along throughout this movie at this point, and just stopping the Penguin whenever he decides to attack the city. Penguin and Catwoman decide to kidnap the city's beauty queen, I don't know what you'd call her, Miss Gotham, and frame Batman for her murder. Batman eventually exposes Penguin's true nature and stops his plan to abduct and kill Gotham's firstborn sons and end his mayoral prospective career. Catwoman seeks revenge on Max Schreck and apparently dies in a final confrontation with him as Batman saves Gotham and from Penguin, while Penguin's army carries Penguin's corpse, that's right, Penguin dies in this as well, into the sewer waters and is left only with a cat as a companion as we roll to black with Catwoman staring up at the bat signal, still alive. Little jumbled at the end there, but that's Batman Returns in a nutshell. And you may not have been able to tell from the summary I gave you, but this movie was a lot weirder than the Batman 1989 movie. It was much more Tim Burton-y, I guess is the best way to describe it.
It certainly was.
Yeah, it was a weird one. I actually saw this one in theaters. This was one of the first movies I have memories of seeing in a movie theater. Actually, the first movie I ever saw that I recall in a movie theater was the original. Sorry, not the original, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. This movie came out a year later, and I remember seeing this with my family. We all went to see Batman Returns in the theater, and It was a weird movie, and I'm not gonna lie. I guess I was 4. As a 4-year-old, it was kind of scary too. Like, but again, I was 4. I probably shouldn't have been seeing the movie. Now, you told me this before we started, but you've seen the movie, but it was a lot more recent that you had seen it.
Yeah, from beginning to end, a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
I just didn't appeal to me. I thought Batman 89 was that adult-ish Batman movie because we were coming, like you said earlier, we were coming from that Adam West era of, bat shark repellent and the screen turning sideways when the bad guys are talking. So I felt like Batman 89 was like, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. And this was one step backwards. You got penguins with rockets on their backs, just the whole Penguin, Danny DeVito. I mean, Danny DeVito did a good job, but it's not the Penguin. And I think this is where we're going to start going as we move on with these other Batman movies. Like, that's not really how it's supposed to work. I just, it never appealed to me. And now I'm a big Batman fan now. Was very casual growing up. I was more into the Turtles, more into the Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, but it just never appealed to me. Even as an adult, it's just like, nah, it just never called out to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. And then I watched it, and I'm like, it's still just, no, there's something about it. It just doesn't, it doesn't resonate with me.
See, and I guess because I saw it at such a young age, and it was really my first exposure to seeing Batman in a movie, or really Batman ever, because at that point there was no cartoon either. Like, I love this movie. Again, there were some traumatic elements of it from seeing it as a kid, but oh my God, like I can quote this movie like sight and verse. I watched it so much. I never actually owned it on VHS. My mom taped it off of a TV, it was probably CBS or whatever. She taped it. And which is funny because watching it, the version I remember seeing had all this stuff cut out because for TV to edit it down for commercials, and then also cut out the swear words and like some of the more violent stuff. So the version I saw as a kid was very different than the actual version that I've since seen many times with all the stuff thrown back into it. But I don't know, man. I love this movie. I can see why it has its flaws. I can see why it gets the criticisms that it gets as far as it being really out there and really dark and kind of morbid. But at the same time, I also kind of appreciate that because it goes in a very different direction than the rest of the films in the franchise end up going. So I'm perfectly happy about that. By the way, I do want to throw out a shout out. I didn't mention who portrayed Max Schreck, but Christopher Walken portrayed Max Schreck. And this is the first time I'd ever seen Christopher Walken in a movie. And dude, he was fantastic. Like, I say what you will about the rest of the movie, Christopher Walken he tears it up in this movie.
Very diverse acting range of Mr. Walken.
Yes,
for sure.
But I don't know. I love it. I think this is a great movie. It unfortunately, again, that's my opinion of the movie, but unfortunately, the public eye did not see it the same way as I did. On a budget of somewhere between 50 and 80 million, kind of a big range, but that's the range I've got on Wikipedia here. It only brought in about 266 million. So almost half of what not almost half, but over 200, over 150 million less than than its predecessor. So which is not a very solid return on investment because they put a lot into this as well. We talked about the merchandise last time. I think that kind of went crazy this time in terms of the movie tie-ins. There was actually a big controversy. They had the McDonald's Happy Meal toys all set to go. That was all approved before the movie came out, and then as soon as the movie came out, McDonald's like freaked out, like, dude, what the hell? This movie is terrifying for children, and we wanted to do toys with you guys. What gives? So there was a big controversy around that. Same thing with the action figures. They had to re-portray some of the characters. So if you ever look up, by the way, like the Penguin action figure looks nothing like Danny DeVito's portrayal of Penguin in this movie because that was way too scary for kids to own a toy version of that.
Really?
Yeah, I'm serious. Yeah,
I'm Googling that right now.
Go Google Batman Returns Penguin action figure, and if you look at the
oh wait, that was really? I didn't know that was I had that figure. I didn't even know it was from. I swear, exactly. I did not know that Penguin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they had to read, because again, that was what they had in mind, and then they saw the movie, and they're like, wait, looks nothing like, okay, well, let's go ahead and release it. And
it looks like the one from 1966.
yeah, it's the comic book Penguin, because that's...
I didn't know, so I had that figure. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. So here's another fun fact. If you notice, if you Google this, Robin, Batman's faithful sidekick, does not appear in the movie, but there were earlier concepts for the film where he would have been played by... one of the Wayans brothers, I believe, Sean Wayans, I think.
Oh,
he was going to be a mechanic that ended up joining Bruce somehow. I don't remember the exact kind of plot points, but if you look up the Robin action figure, because
I have right here,
they released a Robin action figure for the Batman Returns movie. He never shows up, and funnily enough, you notice he is white. The action figure is a white man. You see that?
yes,
But his hair is a very... It almost looks like Will Smith's hairstyle from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Do you see that?
a little bit. The photo is not.
Okay. So, anyway.
It's only going for $20. I thought it would be more rare.
I guess not. I mean, they put out a lot of these figures, so I mean, that doesn't surprise me, actually. So yeah, let's talk about that. We're kind of all over the place.
I had that Catwoman figure too.
See, I'm thinking you might have had the Batman Returns Batman figure too. I feel like that's got to be.
And I had the Penguin Commandos too. I see those little guys with the jetpacks, and
see,
I had those.
You had more, and you hadn't even seen the movie.
I didn't have to. It was Batman. I kind of knew what the gist was.
Yeah, and these, I mean, you would have been 6 years old, so this is what would have come out at the time.
That Penguin thing blows my mind because I never put two and two together.
Yeah, it was from the movie. So there you go. So
wow.
You had it. So not only did they have, we talked about the McDonald's toys, we talked about the action figures a little bit there. I mean, so much merchandise. I had a coloring book. I had activity books. I had a picture book version of the, like a novelization of the movie that I read cover to cover so many times. And then, of course, there was video games, right? This was around when the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo were hot. So we didn't actually talk about this. I do want to go back real quick because there was a movie video game for the first Batman movie on Nintendo. Did you ever own Batman on Nintendo?
I never owned. No, there is one Batman video game I owned. It was based on a movie, but not the first two.
Okay. Are we going to talk about it next week?
Yeah, the third one, and it sucked.
So anyway, sorry. Shout out to the original Batman Nintendo game that was hard as hell and basically played like Ninja Gaiden, and it was really hard. I never beat it.
NES hard.
NES hard, exactly. Now, on Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, Batman Returns made its debut, and there were two very different games, by the way. So,
I did play the Sega Genesis one. It was one of the first games I ever remember renting, especially from like the little mom and pop place.
Yep, I rented. That was the first time I played it too. I rented it from the local grocery store and played it, and it was fun. I was terrible at it. In my defense, it probably wasn't that good of a game. And then years later, I learned that the Batman Returns Super Nintendo version was so much different. Have you ever looked up gameplay footage of the Super Nintendo Batman Returns?
I probably did, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
It is amazing. It is basically more of a traditional kind of beat 'em up style game, like a Streets of Rage. Mm-hmm. Where you go and like a Ninja Turtles, like the Ninja Turtles arcade game, but with Batman. And it is amazing. The sound is great. The graphics are fantastic for the time. I mean, night and day. Super Nintendo hands down won that battle when it came to Batman Returns video games.
I do remember. Yeah, now I'm seeing the screenshots of it. I do remember. I do remember seeing that.
But you never played it back in the day. Because you had a Super Nintendo.
Maybe I did have a Genesis. Maybe I have it wrong. Could it be? Oh, wait a minute. I had it wrong.
You had it on Super Nintendo.
I rented it on Super Nintendo.
It's a great game.
Yeah. Wow. Jeez, I'm getting old.
Yeah. Well, then when you get a chance,
I just typed in Batman Returns Sega, and that is not what I played.
Yeah, that's what I played. It sucked.
I just type in SNES. Yeah, it's a side scroller beat 'em up.
Yeah.
Oh, that is what the one I played. Wow, I've been thinking all this time.
Yep. Nope.
Wow. Yeah, that's like some skeleton-looking dude on a motorcycle.
Yes, and you had to knock him off. Yeah, in the Super Nintendo version.
Okay, yes, this is what I rented.
That's the one.
I sworn it was on Sega, but
nope, it was the one.
All right, there we go.
Oh yeah,
it was a good game. Very good game.
Absolutely. So Yeah, I mean, going back to it, so the one I watched, the version of this I watched the most came off of a tape that my mom recorded off of CBS, so it had all the scary stuff cut out for the most part, but I remember going to a friend's house in second grade. This is the same friend that I played Super Nintendo with and N64 with. He owned Batman Returns on VHS, and he probably thought I was crazy, because the first time I slept over and I saw that on his shelf, I was like, oh my God, can we watch Batman Returns? And he's like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, if you want to. And it's funny because his mom was like, no, you guys can't watch that. It's too scary for you guys. It's you're too young.
But he owned it, though.
He owned it. Well, I mean, his family owned it. It might not have been for him.
Okay.
Anyway, we ended up watching it anyway, and it was fantastic.
Oh, you rebels.
We did. I think we stayed up to 2 or 3 in the morning, and we were watching movies, and that was one of the movies we watched. And I remembered all the gross, scary stuff that was cut out. Because it's funny, it was one of those almost like a Mandela effect. Where I'm like, I would watch the version that my mom recorded off of TV, but I'm like, wait a second, there's supposed to be something else happening here. Like, am I going crazy? And then I realized years later that no, they cut a bunch of it out so they could make room for commercials and stuff. And there were entire scenes cut out that I remember seeing in theaters, and I thought it was a fever dream until I was validated by seeing the actual VHS of Batman Returns.
Yeah, I think we all have those moments with older movies or games. Like, did I remember this correctly, or did I see something that's kind of altering the way I'm thinking about this?
Well, I was going to say,
I thought I played Batman Returns on Sega Genesis for the last 20 years.
Yeah, no.
Oops.
And well, do you remember? Like, did your mom ever tape movies off of the TV, like with commercials and everything included?
I'm sure we did. I remember we got a bootleg of Toy Story. I think it was from like the. Some guy had his camcorder.
Oh, okay.
Movie theater, but like actually, yeah, I definitely recorded things off of TV.
But like, do you remember they used to cut out the swear words, or they would cut whole scenes out to save time? Like, there was always like back in the day, I used to hate when they would like show the movie on TV because I knew I was probably going to be missing something. Versus if I were to actually watch it on like HBO or
and they still do that though. And what's worse, they do it on cable.
See, and I haven't seen a movie on cable in years at this point, so a bit that's disappointing to hear, though.
Like it's 2023. I'm watching a movie like National Lampoon's Christmas at like 10:30 at night on a Thursday night, and they can't say the word shit. Like, we don't know what they're saying,
right?
Like,
yeah,
I don't know,
especially on cable. I agree. So they cut it out. See, and that's like, it's not as fun because I'm like, I'm not watching the movie that I wanted to watch. I'm watching this censored version that sucks.
Well, you're getting it kind of for free, or
I mean, I guess
kind of,
yeah. I mean, you're paying your cable bill, but still. Anyway, well, listen. To this day, it's still one of my favorite Batman movies, even though it was very controversial and very polarizing. You see what I did there? Polar, because it's with the snow in the winter. Yeah. Anyway, so for you though, it's. I mean, I give it 2 thumbs up. What about you?
Give it one thumb.
Okay, so not terrible, not your favorite.
No, it's definitely not.
Where would you rank it? Like, I mean, is it in like your top 5 Batman movies though? Like, where would you rank it?
No, it's not in the top 5 Batman
It's not even in the top 5. Wow.
Nope,
okay.
It's not.
Well, okay.
Obviously, the Dark Knight trilogy is. Batman 89 is.
Yeah.
And The Batman is.
Okay, so those are your top 5.
You're going to hate me, but Batman and Robin actually does make the top 5.
Oh, you
so bad.
son of a...
It's so bad that it's good.
Oh, my God. I was thinking we were going to just totally have a I don't even know, like just crap all over the movie next week.
Civil conversation about hating on a movie. Then I'll hate on Batman forever.
Well, I have we'll talk about that too. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to give too much away now, but I have a very heartbreaking story about Batman and Robin to tell next week.
Dan probably broke up with a girlfriend or something like that.
No, I was 10. I didn't have a girlfriend. Are you kidding me?
No.
No. I'll tell you. No, you'll understand when I tell a story next week. It's a very sad story. Something I'm not proud of. We'll just say that.
Huh. I'm intrigued now.
Yes, you will be.
I don't want to know off the air.
No, I won't. I will legitimately tell you for the first time when we record.
Okay.
Well, listen, I mean, you're right, man. You're saying this will be about 45 minutes. I'm like, nah, we'll go an hour. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. I knew this had to be 2 parts because we couldn't do all 4 Batman movies in one episode. But I figured splitting them up, these next 2 episodes might be a little bit shorter. But any closing thoughts on Batman Returns or the Keaton Batman movies as a whole?
Well, I think the reason why this one's going to be quicker than the next episode is Batman 89 is universally praised.
Yep.
And Batman Returns is universally mixed.
Yeah, that's
and then
fair.
the next two are universally disliked. But there are some of us that do kind of like one of them. So I think this is a pretty straightforward episode.
Yeah.
I think Michael Keaton coming back is very interesting. It's going to be exciting in the Flash movie. The Flash, whatever the hell this whack job's name is, Ezra?
Yeah, Ezra Miller.
What's his name? Yeah, what a whack job.
Yeah.
I'm holding out for, obviously we know Michael Keaton's going to be in it, which is exciting. It's nostalgia at its finest.
I think so. And again, we're about 30 years out from the last time we saw Michael Keaton as Batman. And it just proves my ongoing non-scientific theory. Every 30 years, what's old is new again. And this is just living proof. Now, granted, this was supposed to come out like 2 or 3 years ago, but still, it's not coming out until the 2020s. So my theory rings true still today.
So can I talk about the Flash movie for a split second? Because we're not going to give it its own.
I mean, yeah, sure.
So obviously I'm looking forward to Michael Keaton in it. But the other rumor is that this whack job Flash might be replaced by the Flash that's on the CW show. Grant, I don't know how to say his last name, Grant Gustin?
I think that's his name, yeah.
Yeah, because I think he does a great job. And the TV show already did its own kind of Flashpoint thing, where you saw an old Bruce Wayne, which was interesting. It actually was played by Kevin Conroy, which was the voice of Batman from the animated series.
Yep.
So I'm hoping not only do I get to see Michael Keaton back as Batman looking great, but at the end of it, this whack job Flash actor is gone and, oh, look, you look different. You've changed or something generic. I don't know. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most in this Flash movie. Keaton and Grant Gustin possibly, hopefully, taking over being the Flash in the DC movie universe.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing, right? They can't keep Ezra Miller around after he's basically a ticking time bomb. So I mean, you can't, if you're going to build a franchise around it, you can't depend on someone like that. So I totally understand that. Hopefully that's what they do whether it's with Grant Gustin or another character playing or another actor portraying the Flash. Hopefully they do something to address that because they can't keep this guy around. So I totally get that. Yeah, no, I don't know if I'm going to see it in theaters. I'm going to try to see it in theaters if I can. If not, I'll definitely catch it, on demand or what have you. And if I do see it in theaters, we'll definitely probably throw up a review of the movie on YouTube just for fun. And give our thoughts. Hey, speaking of YouTube, by the way, we talked a bit about the different merchandise tie-ins for Batman, and there were certainly a ton of old commercials with Batman. There's actually two that come to mind for me right away. One of which is the Diet Coke commercial that ties in with the original '89 Batman, where Alfred's calling and he's calling a grocery store, going, "Excuse me, sir, we've run out of Diet Coke. I'm going to send someone in a car to pick it up." But he's like, "Oh, I think you'll recognize this car. It's very distinct," or something like that. So that's one commercial I remember as a kid. And then the other one is actually a commercial for the kids' playset Batcave and Wayne Manor from Batman Returns.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. Ironic, all the toys that you had that didn't realize were Batman Returns, apparently.
Probably, yes. Apparently there was quite a few.
Yeah, so I just, we've sort of touched on commercials on this podcast, but my God, and I may do a whole episode on just old commercials that I remember, but I think I'm going to start putting up some more commercials on the YouTube channel. So make sure after you check out this podcast, go over to the YouTube channel. I'm going to have a compilation of all the Batman commercials. I might break them up between Batman '89 and Batman Returns. What I'll probably do is just do like the Tim Burton Batman movies as one commercial block. But anyway, there will be something on YouTube that you can enjoy along with listening to the podcast as kind of a complimentary video that goes up. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah, man, a lot of fun doing this with you today, Lou. Had a lot of fun talking about who I think we both agree is the greatest on-screen Batman.
Absolutely. And now we're going to dive into the other side of the pool.
Yes, the return, or I should say the arrival of Bat Nipples.
Yeah, and a Bat credit card.
And the Bat credit card, yes. So next
and
week...
puns on top of puns on top of puns.
Yes, and it sounds like you're incredibly excited to discuss those. So
I am. I think it's it's the best, worst movie of all time.
There it is. All right, well, we'll talk more about that next week as we continue in our Batman 90s retrospective with part 2, the Bat Nipples Joel Schumacher Batman movie. So once again, I'm Dan Kemp. Lou Carnivale, thank you so much for joining me, Lou.
Stay cool.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye.